Okay, we are live. We'll just wait a couple of seconds and then we'll get started. Whew. Just wait for a couple people to log in and then go from there. Okay, there is one viewer, so let's start. We'll wait a couple more minutes. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our second episode of I'm Powered, presented by Cancer Warrior Canada Foundation. My name is Janvi, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm currently a second-year student at the University of Waterloo. I represent the Cancer Warrior Canada Foundation, and I've been so fortunate to help start that up. It's moved on to be such a big part of my life, and I'm so excited to host this series and see where all these different discussions take us and hope that it impacts you in even the slightest way possible. Okay, that's enough about me. If it were up to me, I know my mom can testify to this, I probably wouldn't stop talking about myself. So unfortunately, my one-woman show will have to stay on the back burner for another time. But I'm so excited to get today's conversation going with the three of you, all pursuing completely different careers. But I have noticed over the past year that there's so many similarities between all of us, whether that's us in first year or you in third year. While we're talking, I noticed that there's so many similarities when it comes to our mental health and our overall well-being and how we overcame those fears, especially this year where there was so much anxiety and uncertainty. So to everyone watching, if your teenager isn't watching with you right now, now would be a really great time to yell at them, call them over. Who knows, something that we say might just help them in the future, tomorrow, or even right after we're done this live stream. Before we begin, I'd like to encourage everybody watching to please feel free to send us any questions or comments through the comment section below. Our panelists, as well as myself, would be more than happy to address them. At the end of our session, we'll have a little bit of a question and answer going for you. Okay, that's enough of me talking. I'd like to start by giving the floor to our panelists. If you guys just want to one by one introduce yourselves, that would be great. Krisha, let's start with you.
Hi everyone, my name is Krisha Patel. I'm a second-year student at the University of Waterloo. I'm currently studying in the Accounting and Financial Management program, pursuing towards my CPA designation.
Artie, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Hey everyone, my name's Artie. I'm also a second-year student at the University of Waterloo. I'm currently studying urban planning and also working towards a business minor. And in the future, I hope to explore my options a bit more within urban design and architectural consulting.
That's so great. And Sanjana, last but not the least.
Cool. Hey everyone, I'm going into my fourth year at the University of Western Ontario, and I'm pursuing my honors specialization in biology. I'm pursuing medicine later on, so I hope to become a doctor someday.
Ooh, we can never have enough of those in the world, especially with everything going on right now.
Sure.
So let's dive right into the questions. Krisha, we went through high school together, and I know how hard it was when we were deciding our universities, and I remember the stress that all of us were going through together, and I remember just sitting in that environment, and all we would talk about was, hey, what university are you going to? Hey, did you get this acceptance? I want to know, how has your overall well-being and just your state of mental health differed when you were making that transition into university? Have you had a different coping mechanism in compared to high school, or are you trying something new? So let's talk a little bit about just your coping strategies with everything going on in that transition.
Yeah, definitely. I remember those times. There are one memories that we've built. So definitely my transition from high school to university has been tough. There has been several obstacles that I faced. I think one of the biggest obstacle was the workload has significantly increased from high school to university. So one coping mechanism that I used to kind of manage that workload for me that worked was creating a schedule. My schedule would kind of have my tasks and assignments listed in order of importance and priority. And another coping mechanism that I did also use was always asking for help. I know when coming into university, it's such a big environment and we're all afraid to talk to our profs or even TAs since we're in really large classrooms compared to high school. But I think one thing that really helped me was never to be afraid to talk to your prof or even your TA. And another thing, I was also very stressed in the first semester because of the workload. And one thing that really helped me was kind of managing my academic life with my social life. So I was a part of several extracurricular activities in university. And after having a long day at school, I would really enjoy being a part of those activities, meeting new people, doing things that I like with similar people, and just kind of building my friends group and networking with other people. And at the end, I realized that making the transition from high school to university there's several things, obstacles and failures you will face. For some, those failures may have increased or decreased for others, but I think the most important part is actually accepting your failures, realizing your mistakes, and kind of reflecting on your actions, turning your negative into positive. For example, you won't always receive the best mark or the same mark you received in high school because it's much harder in university. But at the end of the day, the feedback you receive or the failure you expect is a big thing. And just learning from that can really help you succeed towards future courses and just further on in university and the outside world.
Yeah, that's great. I know for me, a lot of those coping strategies have also really helped. And I remember we were talking about this when we were back on campus. For everybody watching, we would also really love to hear what your best coping strategy is for stressful situations. So feel free to comment that down below, and hopefully we can together help, cope with all these different anxieties that we're dealing with right now. And who knows, maybe something that you would say might help one of us or someone watching. I know I'm someone who doesn't handle stress very well, and I think everybody can agree to that who knows me. It's very easy for me to become anxious. This itself is very scary for me. But I remember sitting in my high school cafeteria making pros and cons lists for each university. And even then, I was really hesitant about whether or not I'd be making the right choice. Sanjana, I want to know, because you're in third year now, how is that experience for you? If you could, give like a younger version of yourself advice into making that decision, what would you tell her? Would you do something differently, or are you pretty satisfied with the choice that you made?
So I think going back, like if I backtrack to maybe 3 years ago, I think it was probably around this time where we were making our decisions towards what university we were pursuing. So I think one thing a lot of us did, at least in my year and myself, like including myself, was kind of, I had like a stereotype or a kind of, already biased towards what kind of university or what kind of program I want to do. To the extent where I feel like I didn't even do my research thoroughly as I should have. So, it was always like, okay, program X at University X is my first choice, followed by Y, Z. So I feel like I didn't even consider the immense options that were available to me, which is definitely something that I would change if I were to go back now. And I think just like doing more research and asking more people versus maybe like, I know there's great resources like electronic info, and like I know a lot of like the university fair and stuff that expose you to the universities that you would be pursuing. But I think like a big thing about deciding where you want to go is actually getting thoughts and listening to experiences from firsthand individuals who have actually experienced what they're going through. So like talking about like going on Reddit and stuff, and I wish I had gone on Reddit, like even though it might seem like a total, like you might not expect me to say that, but I think Reddit gives you great information on what programs, what people feel about the programs that they pursue. And yeah, I think so that's like a big thing I would change, is actually doing my research and maybe not just being biased towards one program and actually giving all of them an equal shot.
Yeah, I totally agree. I remember just sitting there and going through all these different websites, but I noticed as soon as I would talk to somebody else who's gone through the same path, like just hearing their experience would be so much more valuable than just reading things online, just because it's almost like a selling point that these universities have put out for us to, read and like be like, oh, this is what I want to do. But I think,
you really can't tell until you actually go through it.
Yeah.
So I think the best way to get an actual experience of what to expect is through someone who's already been through it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know that like just making that choice took such a big toll on my mental health. And I remember just like sitting down for hours and making like lists and going through different websites and all of that took a toll, and just I became a lot more anxious just going through that process. But I remember in school, like there were a lot of different resources that we were given to deal with that. And I think that's a testament to our school system and all the resources that are available to us concerning our mental health. And I've seen the change that's almost kind of emerged through the years that we've been in the school system in terms of our mental health and our well-being. Artie, I want to talk about just a little bit more on that. From your experience, do you think that there's an increased need or focus that needs to be made on our student mental health in our school system? And like, how do you think they should go about tackling the issue?
No, I think that's a really good question. Personally, I really do think that there needs to be an increased focus. Like you mentioned, I do think schools are doing a better job, but I feel like, that's just been in the recent years because like earlier on, it's been such a taboo topic where a lot of people don't discuss it and it's kind of just like hushed away in the corner.
Right.
So I think a lot of schools have had, a good start, but, oh, you still here?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, so I think a lot of schools have like started and they're trying to, but I don't think it's like nowhere near the end. It's just a start. So I think some ways are like they can try to start implementing this more would just be making it normal in a classroom. So whether that's sharing stories or just kind of having lectures or topics or just like specific days devoted towards that, I think that would also really help students just to feel a bit more comfortable. I think another factor is like families. I think it really is dependent on like the parents and who you're also surrounding yourself with. So I think the school system needs to focus on students, but also, to the parents. So whether that's like e-letters or info sessions or, parents nights or just like providing those resources so they can educate themselves so they know what to expect and stuff like that. And I think other than that, I feel like parents also need to realize, I feel like in the past, it's always been school, you go to school, you write your tests, you get your marks and stuff like that. But I think just with like the society changing and stuff, that everything is not about marks, there's a lot more. Yeah, exactly. So it's just, you might have gotten a bad mark on a test, but that, there's a lot of other factors that play into that, other than, oh, maybe I just didn't study. Maybe they were having a bad day or something too.
Yeah. So no, I totally agree. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, to add on to that, like I feel like in high school and stuff, I feel like mental health is also a big taboo almost in high school. So I think like teachers and stuff should try to be more approachable towards students about speaking about sensitive topics like that. Because I didn't really feel that in my high school we kind of had that. Like even going to the guidance counselors was kind of like a taboo that everyone thought maybe you were going through something. But sometimes it's just like you just need to talk. To feel better. So I think that's something that should also be focused on in school systems.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I remember one instance where I had a really bad day and I just needed to talk to someone, and everyone's like, "Oh, why don't you go to the guidance counselor?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, because what if they tell my parents?" And I want them to find out. But at the end of the day, it was just like I just needed someone to talk to. So I think your resources at school, as hard as it may be, they're there for us to use, and we should take full advantage of them, because that guidance counselor conversation kind of helped me decide what university I wanted to go to. Like, you never really know where conversations are going to lead to. But I want to keep on the same topic about mental health, and I want to focus a little bit about like on our families. I know for South Asian communities, the whole idea of mental health and mental illness, there's a lot of taboo behind it. And I've seen an increase as well as a decline for some families, but I think it goes to say that there's still a lot more awareness and education needed on like the root of it. Like most parents don't really know the difference between, being clinically depressed versus just having a really bad day. So I think we should start to, make our parents and our grandparents, as well as our aunts and uncles, a little bit more aware of the real causes and like the real definitions of these things. So Ardi, do you want to just continue on what kind of advice would you give to parents of especially incoming students that are transitioning into university and dealing with just so many unanswered questions, especially like right now where we're living in a world where we don't really know what's going to happen tomorrow?
I'm still here. Yeah, I think that is a really good question. I think how I mentioned, it really does start at home. So if you don't have a good supportive foundation, at home, like, talking about mental health is still going to be a taboo. So I think first off, parents and families need to have an open mindset. I feel like they need to be welcoming to change and stuff like that, which I think, as you mentioned, a lot of South Asian like families and households don't have that or didn't grow up with that. So I think, with having an open mindset would be like having those hard conversations, those tough questions. And, when your student comes home or your child comes home from work, from school and stuff, ask them questions like, how was your day? Stuff like that, rather than just how'd you do on an assignment or something, because usually, there's something behind it. If they did bad on a test, like there's something going on that they just don't want to share with you. And parents just usually assume that, oh, like, I don't know, something happened at school, whatever, it's not that important. But sometimes I feel like students really do want to talk to someone, but they always just think their parents aren't going to take it seriously, so they're just like, let me just keep it bottled in and then just go on with my day.
Yeah.
I think something else would also be to reassure your child, like once you have that strong foundation, that you're willing to support and be there for them. Because I think especially for students coming into post-secondary, a lot of students and like are going to be feeling anxious and stressed, especially when they're making that decision. It's not going to be only your child. So I feel like to give them that reassurance that, everyone's going through the same thing, you're not alone. I feel like oftentimes when you are in those tough situations, you kind of always think that, I'm the only one going through this. Like no one really understands, what I'm going through. And I think especially with, how you said, like, given the situation, this global pandemic, like working from home has been really tough. I think all of us can agree too. Like it's been a really big change, and honestly, I'm still not used to it. So I feel like especially just trying to understand, what as a parent you can do to support your child in that sense, and how you can make a comfortable work environment, because you do need to recognize that they do have assignments and stuff. So it's not like they can always be hanging out with you all the time. So just how can you make a comfortable work environment for them with so much uncertainty right now?
Yeah, I think, like you said, like have those open conversations. And it's so important because if you don't create an environment that like your child is, almost satisfied to work in, you're just not going to get results at the end of the day. It is really hard because we know in university, it's not like high school where a test is worth 5%. A test is worth at least 25%. Like that takes a lot on your mental health. And I think just being in that position, it's so stressful. We don't really know what's going to happen, in the coming months. And we've seen that change. We didn't know that we weren't going to go back to school in September. Like those are some things that just kind of like we got thrown at, and we just had to learn to, adapt to that. I remember last week's episode with Rebecca, as well as our guest Eileen Dillon, we talked about just, conquering fear and conquering anxiety. And a lot of that helped me this week. And I told myself that, like, regardless of the anxiety and all of that, like there will be a way out of this, and we just have to find that way. For me, just, I hate the feeling of uncertainty and like, the fear of unknown. And with the ongoing pandemic, it's been really hard for me to keep my anxiety levels down. So I think some of the things that you mentioned, especially to the parents watching, like, please just hear out your children. Like they're saying these things because they are really feeling it versus the fact that they just want you off your back. I mean, it might just be that they want to get out of cleaning the dishes or whatever, but just for the most part, it might be real. So just hear them out, understand where they're coming from. It really hasn't been easy for us. But I want to continue. To everybody who's watching, we'd love to know some of the different ways that you've been keeping yourself busy during this really weird time where all I've been doing is basically playing Ludo with my dad every single day. It's almost been a checklist where if we don't play, he gets angry. So let us know, because I think we're kind of running out of ideas. But continuing on with our panelists, Sanjana, I know that you've been having a really hard time at home studying for your MCATs. I know for me, just one course is taking a huge toll on me. I can't even imagine how hard that's been for you. How has just, working at home, studying for a huge exam been for you, especially because you're almost like a veteran of stress taking, being in third year? What advice can you give to everybody watching to almost, manage their time and adapt to the environment that we're in?
For sure. And I think like managing your time is something that you really learn as you progress through university. So I don't think that I would have been able to do this maybe after my first year of university. And I did do it after my second year of university, but it definitely wasn't to the extent that I had wanted it to be at. So I think my third year was when I saw my biggest change, where I learned how to time manage and I learned how to cope with stress in the best ways possible. And I think the best way I learned to time manage is by actually using my time efficiently. You really don't realize how many hours you have in the day until you actually start using that time without your phone or without your friends. And I think that one thing I recognized is that putting away your phone really helps manage your time. So for a lot of us that don't know, our screen time, like if you check it, I'm pretty sure it's way higher than you expect it to be. So I would definitely recommend that, like put away your phone while you're studying. And I think the one thing so right now over the summer, I'm doing a part-time research position alongside I'm taking summer school and I'm studying for my MCAT. So it is a lot on my plate, along with being home. So that I feel like that just kind of adds on to it. I feel like for a lot of university students, this transition might have been a little difficult, considering at university, you're kind of a lone wolf or you're independent, where you're not abiding to anyone's rules or protocols. Whereas once you're at home, you can't really go and do whatever you want whenever you want, because you're also limited by the people you live with, the schedule that your family might hold. So let's say it's like before you used to study till, I don't know, 11 p.m., but now you have dinner at 9 p.m. There's kind of like a break in between and stuff. So those factors definitely come in and do affect you. So I think the best thing to do is, number one, make a schedule. I think a lot of us, like after coming home, I've been waking up, maybe, I don't even think we wake up in the AMs anymore. I think you just transition straight up to the afternoons.
Yeah.
So don't do that. Try to make a schedule so that you're waking up at maybe 8, 9 a.m. because you really don't realize how much of the day you waste by just waking up late. So you wake up early, you like have your breakfast and stuff. And even if you're studying by maybe like 10 a.m. or doing something productive by 10 a.m., you still have so much time in the day.
Yeah.
And one thing I recognized or realized recently is this video on YouTube, and there's a lot of them. So I use this video, it's called an 8-hour study with me. And I use it, and it basically is this individual on YouTube. He's made a video of himself for 8 hours and he studies throughout. And you basically study for 25 minutes, you take a break for 5 minutes, you study for 25, break for 5.
Almost like a study buddy.
Kind of, yeah, like kind of like a study buddy, and you don't really have anyone at home. So it's good. It's really good motivation because you can see how much you can actually track your progress. So some days I feel like I'm sitting here for maybe like 10 hours in the office, but looking at the video, I've only studied for 6 if I actually pause when I'm taking breaks and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good indication of how productive you're actually being with your time. And the goal is to actually use your time the best you can. Because if you just use your 8 hours to study, you still have 4 hours of your day to like just go and relax. You don't need to study the whole day, because sometimes using your breaks to do what you think is good for you might actually not be good for you. I feel like you should do something that you enjoy, do something that'll give you make you feel relaxed, maybe meditate, maybe play with your family, like you were saying, play Ludo with your family, whatever, brings peace to your mind.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing. And I think, so like making schedules and really waking up early and sleeping on time, a sleeping schedule is super important as well, I hope.
Yeah, I definitely agree. We have a question here, and I was just looking through, and I thought it was so interesting. One of our viewers has just asked us, what coping mechanisms do you feel were provided by our families that's helped us prepare for university to have almost a strong foundation and strong mental health? And what signs should our parents look for to see those, almost like red flags? I think for me personally, I just remember sitting down with my parents and just having open conversations about where I wanted to go and like what program I wanted to pursue. I knew from, just a really bad experience in high school that I just wasn't smart enough to be in a medical stream or like a medical program. And I told my parents that, and as hard as it was for them to hear, I remember them just being really open about the different possibilities that like different programs and universities held. So for me, I think the most, like, it was almost like a gift for my parents to understand that, it's okay that she doesn't want to be like a doctor, she doesn't want to be a lawyer, she doesn't want to be an engineer, she wants to do something a little bit different. So I think for parents watching, like, be okay with the things that your child is telling you. They've probably done enough research and they know more about themselves than they show. So just be open-minded about that. I don't know. What do you guys have to say about that?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Arti.
Okay. So I was gonna say that I definitely agree with you, and just having those open conversations have also really helped me kind of cope with university and the transition. And an example that I can think of is just coming home during the weekends and telling them about how my week was and how hard an exam or a test was. And I think with that sense, my parents have been like really understanding, where if I was ever feeling stressed out or I didn't know what to do, they would come up to me and we would sit together and come up with solutions. Oh, if you don't know this, what resources can you find on Google, for example, or ask other people to kind of help you come around that situation. So I think that's another thing, that maybe just having that conversation as a family is also very important than talking to your parents individual. Sometimes having 2 or 3 minds together come in can create one big thing. So that was definitely a lot that helped me kind of cope with university and still help me through the transition.
Yeah. Sorry, what do you guys have to say about like red flags that parents might look for? Sanjana, do you want to start with that?
Like red flags as in about like their kids' mental health?
Yeah, so just like if like they're showing different signs of like them not being okay with things, like why should like what should parents do to help support them?
So I think a lot of parents need to realize that high school and university are 2 completely different fields. Like you could excel and I've seen people excel in high school and then completely like get slaughtered in university, and it's just because the transition is so hard. Because you're a lot of us move out of home, so like living alone or even like not having like healthy food to eat. Like I know a lot of us probably rely on like ramen or like packet noodles and stuff. So like I think it's a big transition, and I think parents really need to recognize that. So don't be too hard on your kids. And if your kids are definitely showing like I feel like for me first year was kind of hard. So some of the things I personally saw in myself was I kind of stopped losing interest in what I initially loved. So I loved science, and then I got into my first year and I absolutely didn't like it. And I kept telling my parents, I was like, I don't like this, I don't like this university. I want to move out and stuff. So I think that's a big thing. Like if your kid's telling you that, something that they've loved their whole life and they've suddenly, completely switched, it might just be because of the transition, or it might just be that they actually, because the university exposes you so differently.
That is so true. Yeah, I know. Sorry, I know a couple of people who just haven't had the exposure that's needed for these courses that we're taking, and it's okay for people to change that path or divert from their original goal. Like just hear them out and be okay with it. Arti, we had another question here. Someone is talking about almost an unconventional path to most students, and is it normal for parents to react that way, or like what kind of advice can you give to parents who aren't necessarily okay with what their child has decided to do?
Yeah, I think definitely like this happens to a lot of students and parents. I feel like usually like a lot of times parents just assume that they're gonna go into something that either they discussed or like, they wanted for their child to go into. But I think like the biggest thing that parents need to realize is that like first year, like just because you make a decision you're going into a program, you know, doesn't mean that's set in stone like for the rest of your life or the rest of like your post-secondary, you know. So I feel like you're like parents should be okay and should encourage, I guess, your student to like kind of explore the different opportunities you have, especially in first year. So I feel like if they can kind of come into that mindset that, you know, there's a strong chance that maybe at the end of first year, like my child will come to me and say that, you know, they don't like what they're doing anymore. And I feel like they should be supportive of that, because at the end of the day, you should support your child, you know, in whatever they like to do. So I feel like with just having that like prepared mindset that, you know, first year there's a strong chance that they might not like what they're doing, and just kind of be okay with that, and then like you guys said, you know, support them with what kind of avenue or stream they want to go into.
And I feel like a lot of times what you like, you're usually good at it. So if your child likes something that might not be conventional, it's probably because they're really good at it. And I think that's where they'll excel. If you force them to go into a field that you want them to go through, there's a high chance, I would say, that they won't be as successful as they would have if they pursued what they liked.
No, that's totally true. I remember telling my mom that just watch how much my marks are going to go up when I'm doing something that I enjoy. Like, I know I'm not going to be good at a math course, but if you throw me into some sort of like unique science course, there's a higher chance of me doing well in it versus, you know, calculus or algebra or whatever. So just hearing them out, and I'm reading a couple of these comments, and everybody has a similar theme going on, where obviously you're not supposed to listen to everything your child says, but for most of the time, all we need is just someone to listen to what we're trying to tell them. Just be mindful of the fact that like we're not always going to know right off the bat. I remember biology in high school is very different from the biology that we're studying now. So same thing with accounting. Like Krisha, like I know accounting wasn't the same as it was in high school. Like there's a lot of more things that we just didn't know about. We thought
Definitely not.
But you know, there's always another path that we can take.
Definitely not. It's much more in depth in university. So it's always, there's many chances of you either, maybe you like one concept of accounting and not the actual tax part of it. Maybe you like audit, for example. So there's a lot of options I think you have to consider. And that's one thing I learned as well, that just going into a specific program, you're not just kind of sticking into, for example, just accounting. There's so much more you can do in the business industry. So that's one thing that students and parents should keep in mind, that your kids may change their career paths in second or third year. And I think you should be okay with that and be understanding and kind of helping them cope with that as well. And be by their side to support them when situations like this do arise.
Yeah, this is also a really good question. I know we're talking about like us being open to our parents about these things, but I remember my mom telling me, she's like, why don't you show me what you've come up with, and then we can talk about it instead of just throwing things at me. So I think a really good idea for us as students is to show them that we've done research behind this. We know what we're talking about. We're not pulling this out of our back pocket. So I think something to answer to this question, I think for me, the most important part was showing my parents that I've done enough research and I know where my strengths lie. So, you know, just hear me out one time. I don't know, what did you guys do to almost convince your parents that like this is what I wanted to do?
I know that like to be very honest, like I wanted to become a lawyer for my whole life up until grade 10, but my parents were always understanding, and they always told me that you know, what you think right now is not set in stone. Even right now, they always say that, you know, if you can't do medicine, it's okay. Like you can do something else. Like we'll figure it out. And my parents always say this one thing. They always say whatever happens for the best. And I've seen that happen so many times. Sometimes you might think that whatever has happened, like, you know, your life's falling apart. Okay, like you got this bad mark and stuff. But like in the bigger scheme of things, you'll realize that maybe that one bad mark had taught you so much that one bad mark was just worth it, because you learned so much from it and you just progress so much. Yeah. So I think I think parents should keep an open mind. Always let your kids know that it's okay. Don't ever be adamant or, you know, push them towards pursuing one career path or like, you know, X, Y career paths. I think be open about that. And so it makes it easier for kids to open up if they need to in the future.
Yeah, and I think that also, like, just having these conversations, it almost eases our mind, because we're almost in so much pressure to like prove to our parents, prove to, you know, society that we're supposed to have some sort of like position in our social structure where, you know, it's okay if like things don't go the way that we planned for them to go. I want to continue, Krisha, on the same strand of thinking almost. We're at 35 minutes, so I want to wrap up pretty soon. But, you know, just the uncertainty of our entire situation with, you know, COVID and not going back to school, not knowing, you know, where our career is going to go. What do you think the future holds for someone like our generation, where we don't really know how the careers that we're picking are going to fold out in the future?
So I definitely think that technology has a very big part of where our future will be in the upcoming years, or just for new students transitioning into university. Because as we all know, several universities have announced that undergraduate courses will be online. So I think one thing is that we should really look at this from a positive mindset instead of thinking about it from a negative side, that, oh, having online school may be something different. We'll learn something different. And another important thing is that I think we should still consider it as, give it the same importance as in-person school would be versus online. So getting up early, making sure you still attend your lectures, and doing the work necessary to understand. I think that's one big thing, just having it if you have a positive mindset when learning from online, I guess nothing is impossible to learn. You eventually will learn that what needs to complete. And then another thing is that even for parents, several parents are working from home now versus working at the office. And during this difficult time, I know my parents are also working from home. There has been several instances where situations and unexpected risks have occurred. And I guess we just have to be able to adapt to those situations and being able to think about them positively and finding a way to figure out how to overcome these issues instead of just thinking about all the negative aspect of it. And I think even though our future is uncertain, as open-mindedness is one thing that we just have to keep in mind, whether it be coping with university or with your mental health, or just in general, just being open-minded with everything and being able to listen to everyone's feedback and just understanding what's going on is one thing that's important.
No, I totally agree with you. I think we should channel the uncertainty and all the things going around us into something positive. I think this series in itself is a great way for us to, you know, learn about different resources, you know, learn about different people's mindsets and like how different people are dealing with similar situations. So that was such an incredible discussion. Thank you guys so much for, you know, being a part of this. To everybody watching, we hope that you're taking away at least one. I hope that through this discussion, you were able to think about, you know, the bigger picture and use some of the things that we've said for you, for your children, for, you know, just in the future to help conquer your anxieties and your mental health. We really appreciate all your comments and your suggestions and your questions that you helped lead this discussion forward. If you do have anything more to say to us, or, you know, comments or suggestions, send us an email or DM our social media pages at Cancer Warrior. We would love to get back to you. Before we do end off, though, please remember to tune in this Thursday for another exciting episode with Rebecca, whose episode you should have seen last week. If you happen to miss that, we do have a recap of that posted on our social media pages, so feel free to also check that out. And a recording of this will be posted shortly. Everybody else, you guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you guys had as much fun discussing this as I did. So with that, I'd like to wrap it up. I hope you guys are all empowered with our discussion today.
Thank you for having us here. It was really nice talking to all of you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.